What's going on, people of the internet? Khaotic here with a KRR, and welcome back, or welcome if this is your first time visiting my channel. Now, originally this video was going to be around a topic that was a bit more of a mature subject, so I'm not going to go into too much details about it here, since this video is not going to be age restricted, and the previous topic I would have talked about was definitely something that would have needed to be age restricted, because simply put, it was about a, well, specific media trope, for lack of a better way to describe it, that comes from Shmentai, that is becoming more and more available in adult animated media. And I was going to pretty much go over where it came from. I pretty much just stated where it came from, why it's so prevalent in adult content of the animated variety, and how it's obviously not realistic, but you shouldn't see it as such because it is fantasy. And fantasy is it's not supposed to be a representation of reality, but an escape from it. You must separate fantasy from reality. However, I unfortunately lost some assets that were very important for the bouncing off point or the transition into that topic. So I had to cancel that entire video, even though I recorded everything, because I literally reference a piece of content that I do show up on screen, not the actual adult content, but a video on TikTok talking about it, which was supposed to be my transition. Unfortunately, that asset, or assets, was the part I accidentally deleted. So I don't have my transition for that topic. And anyways, I pretty much gave you the general gist of it right then and there, so I feel like I don't even need to at that point. Otherwise, if I wanted to give a little bit more, I think I'll just do a short of it later on. So instead, what I got for you guys today is something that has been sitting on my mind for quite a while, ever since I discovered the show Dr. Stone. Now, if you have not seen the anime for yourself yet, I highly recommend seeing it for yourself. It is available on Netflix. I think Crunchyroll, I don't know. I mean, all anime is on Crunchyroll, right? I'm not sure. I've never used the service myself personally, to be honest. And if you're a bit of a science geek, I definitely recommend this show, because there's a lot of realistic science featured and frankly explained in this show. Probably the only aspects that you should have a suspension of disbelief for, given how scientifically inaccurate or impossible it is physical feats that characters are capable of within the show. But again, just suspend your disbelief for that. Just ignore it for the sake of immersion. That's like the only aspect of the show that's completely scientifically inaccurate, impossible, but you're supposed to ignore it because it's an animated show, it's all done for fun, and nobody really cares because that's not the main aspect of the show when it comes to the science. In fact, most of the science is engineering, chemistry, and physics. Nonetheless, keep that in mind. That's important to know for the show. And the general gist of it, without spoiling it too much, is a kid who's basically a scientist is trying to survive in a world after all of society has crumbled due to humanity being petrified into stone. And he's trying to cure that, thus the name Dr. Stone. Now, that's the general gist I can give you. If you want to see it, go see it for yourself before moving forward with this video. Or at least probably just the first 2 seasons. Because otherwise it's going to be a while till you can see this. Because there will be some spoilers in this video. But it's okay. I don't mind if you come back within a week. Now, the show's not over. It's still running its course. There's another season coming soon. But do let it be known that I am going to spoil a bit of Season 1 and I think Season 2. And a specific moment in a specific episode in a later season. So if you don't want to be spoiled, go see the show for yourself first. At least the first 2 seasons. And then you can come back. Otherwise, if you don't care, let's move on. And keep in mind that since we do got a lot of context to cover, this video is obviously not going to be short. So if you haven't already figured that out by seeing the video's runtime before clicking on it, yeah, there's your verbal warning. Please do not complain or bitch about it to me in the comment section that the video is too long. The video is too long. Even though your dumbass could have literally chosen not to click on it by just seeing the video's runtime. You know that shit's plastered right on the thumbnail at the bottom right corner, right? Like, to whomever you are watching this about to make that stupid ass complaint, I don't know if you're new to the internet or just YouTube, BitChute, Rumble, Odyssey, whichever platform you're watching this on. Shout out to all those people watching on those platforms. But yeah, for all those video platforms that I just mentioned, the runtime is right there, bottom right corner. How did you miss that? I don't want to hear that shit. That's on you. Anyways, let's get into the background context. Anyway, so with this show, Dr. Stone, as I stated, it's a show where a kid who's a scientist, or really wants to be a scientist, he didn't go to school to become one yet because the world unfortunately became petrified. All of society turned to stone. And over the course of, I believe, if my memory serves me correct, feel free to correct me at any point in time in the video if my memory is wrong, because it's been a while since I've seen the show. And I'm just waiting for the next season at this point. But if memory serves me correct, all the society, or what society left over before being petrified, collapses within 3,000 years. There's no buildings left. The people still exist as stone, but their clothes has done rotten away. Their clothes was not petrified along with their body. Only humanity was petrified, as well as birds for some reason. This is the odd thing they never explain in the show. Humans can be petrified, birds can be petrified, but no other mammal or species whatsoever can be petrified. Plants cannot be petrified. Fungi cannot be petrified. Sea life cannot be petrified. Now, people can be petrified in the water. I think they have shown people being petrified within the water. Now, there is, I think, a way to avoid it in the water, sort of, if you can get away from the vicinity, but that's just getting away from the vicinity. The water in of itself doesn't really save you. And the way the world became petrified was apparently some dude on the moon, we still don't know who he is yet. The show is on their journey to figure out who he is, why he did it, and stop him from doing it again. Which he literally does later on in the show. And it's all thanks to a special device that our characters nickname the Medusa, named after the Greek mythological creature or entity, whatever you want to call it. Due to the simple fact it petrifies people into stone. However, thankfully, it can be reversed, as our main character, Senku, is the very first one to be unpetrified. He doesn't know how, he doesn't know why, he just managed to finally break out of the stone. But over time, he eventually figures out how the petrification wore off, makes a formula to do that with more people, and starts off with his closest friends that he knows personally that have skills to help him survive. And one of those people that he ends up unpetrifying later on is a character by the name of Tsukasa. Now, he does unpetrify two other people first, but they're not really important to the discussion at hand right now. But one of the people that is important to the discussion at hand is the third person he ends up unpetrifying, which is Tsukasa, as he calls him, the strongest primitive high schooler. Because, well, he's very strong, he's very athletic, he was apparently a good hunter, and they unpetrify him so he can be used to help them hunt and get some meat. Now, they are, at this point, I think, growing food, but that's not enough, especially when winter comes around. So with his help, his skills, they can survive and hopefully get closer and closer to the bottom of his conundrum. Now, really quickly, one last time, I must remind you that everything that society has created, except for what's left up in space maybe, if it hasn't already fallen down due to gravity by now, because that does happen with some space stations, with one of the international space stations. It eventually does crash into the Earth, but way earlier in the timeline. Otherwise, the only man-made things left that haven't completely disintegrated into nothing is whatever the fuck humanity launched into space. And is still up there. Everything from the infrastructure to equipment to cars to the clothes on the stoned people's backs to everything. Gone. Gone. All human man-made objects, infrastructure, art, culture, except for what's left in people's minds, gone. That nothing is. Your favorite song, gone. Your favorite movie, gone. Your documentation to your medical records, gone. Any resemblance of who you are beyond your memory, gone. The economy, gone. Your home, gone. Everything has fucking disintegrated into nothing and vegetation has taken over. Put a pin on that. Now, later on, as the show progresses, our character, Tsukasa, makes his concerns known to Senku about bringing people back and trying to bring back society, piece by piece. And his main concern is, what if we bring back all the rich, corrupted politicians and billionaires who made society what it was then, which was not in the best place? Not in the worst place, given their situation, but not the best place either. Would they not eventually recreate the same problems? And for the most part, I think that's a pretty fair concern. But Senku says nonetheless, that doesn't matter. We'll figure it out as we go along. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But as of right now, our main focus should be bringing back humanity so we can bring back society. At least as it is, and then we'll fix it from there. Now, he doesn't exactly say that, but I feel like he was definitely implying that. But the main focus is we have to unpetrify humanity. It doesn't matter if we recreate what it was before or we make something brand new. We cannot do it without people, because people are a necessary resource for a society to function. Without the people, you do not have a society. I literally just stated in my general summary of this show, society fucking crumbled because humanity was absent. Well, technically they were still there in the buildings as they crumbled around them. Let that sink in, especially for those that were on freaking top floors of freaking skyscrapers. Yeah, those people are gone forever. They're dead. But without its people, society does not exist. Without maintenance from the people, no resemblance of it will remain.
Plan B?
People are a resource. Money on the table.
People are the foundation of what we are building here!
And eventually, over time, as the show progresses and they start making more of this unpetrification formula, this elixir, or not elixir, I don't know, I guess we could call it an elixir or potion, and start unpetrifying more people, he gets deeper and deeper into his concerns and basically just starts beef with Senku like, bro, if we're going to unpetrify humanity and bring back society, we cannot bring back the politicians and the billionaires that caused society to start crumbling and going to shit in the first place. And Senku's like, dude, I'm sorry, but no. If you're thinking what I think you're thinking, it's not happening. We're reviving everyone, every last individual that was petrified. From there, they start having philosophical arguments, ideological arguments about changing society, bringing it back as is, bringing back the politicians and billionaires, not reconstructing society in their own new image, yada yada. And eventually, they just end up starting a war between each other for the sake of humanity, the future of society, ownership to mass production of the unpetrification potion. Now, as, again, the show continues to progress, we go through this war between the Kingdom of Science with Senku and, I guess, the Tsukasa Kingdom. I can't remember the nickname they gave for his kingdom, but it's Senku and his guys versus Tsukasa and his guys that they're unpetrifying. Not to mention a village of remaining humans that still existed that Senku later on finds. Now eventually Senku and the Kingdom of Science does take Tsukasa and his guys down to the point where he ends up in a near-death situation, and Senku feels the need to petrify him again in hopes that he can save his life and fix his situation, which he does later on find out that all he has to do is unpetrify him again, and for some reason the petrification process actually heals people's wounds. Which he ends up finding out when he helps Tsukasa find his sister in order to unpetrify her, whom was apparently very ill to the point where she was hospitalized back when society was still around. Now that society has crumbled, if they were to unpetrify her, there was a concern that she would still be deadly ill. And now all of the medical technology that was necessary for her to survive is gone. It doesn't exist. But luckily enough, that's not an issue because the unpetrification process ends up healing her completely of her illness and heals Tsukasa of his wounds. Eventually, Senku and Tsukasa, they essentially have a peace deal. Okay, their little war is over, and now they're working together again. Now, Tsukasa's concerns still exist for the most part, but now he's with Senku all the way in saving humanity, especially knowing that with the petrification device, the Medusa, and their own petrification potion, they can actually use it to heal people in ways more advanced and way more quick than any advanced medical technology they had back in society. The Medusa ends up being their greatest weapon and their greatest medical asset, and generally speaking, their greatest asset overall. Once they got their hands on it, of course, and later on, more. Even when the battery was dead, they still managed to use it as an important asset. We can pretty much consider most of that summary over for the earlier seasons. But I do want to spoil one last thing, where they eventually, later on, unpetrify this one rich kid, billionaire kid, because back in society, he used to own a yacht and a sailboat, and he was a very good sailor. In fact, he would pretty much run his ship himself. He wouldn't just have a captain run the crew on their own, meanwhile he enjoys the luxury. No, he actually took the time to do his own sailing. He had the skills to do it, and they needed him for that. Now, there's a little bit more I do want to touch on, but again, we're going to put a pin on that because we will come back around to that later. Forgive me for my speech impediment. And the main reason why we're going to come back to that later is because the one thing I want to point out with the war between Tsukasa and Senku, which is the main thing I want to talk about the most, that's why I gave you all that summary background. This detail with this one character could be used as a counter to some of the points I'm going to make. But even then, the whole reason why I'm making these points is to point out how easily preventable the war between Tsukasa and Senku could have been if Senku's brain wasn't too focused on the science aspect. Or better yet, if he remembered one aspect when it came to the crumbling of society. That everything is fucking gone. Now, let me just explain it like this, as if it was dialogue going back and forth between Tsukasa and Senku, right? Tsukasa starts off by saying, you know, Senku, we may have a problem here. Because you want to bring back all of humanity. And I'm telling you, I don't want to bring back the politicians and billionaires that were fucking up our society. And we should start fresh. This is our opportunity to do so. But you just want to go back to the way things were. So, the way I see it is, especially since you've already taught me on how to make the special unpetrification potion, is either you help me in my ideas, or you get out of my way. And if you do not get out of my way, you will be moved. And instead of having this ideological battle with Tsukasa, what Senku should have replied with is, okay, Tsukasa, alright. Okay, let me play a little bit of devil's advocate here. Let's say we do it your way, right? We do it your way. We go about our unpetrification process by selecting who gets to live again and who doesn't. Okay, we do not want to bring back the same politicians and billionaires that corrupted our society in the first place. And we're not just talking about those within our society, the society of Japan, because, you know, this show does take place in Japan in the beginning. They do eventually make their way to the United States, but they are Japanese from Japan. The show starts off taking place in Japan. Nonetheless, Senku's like, we're not just talking about our society here in Japan, obviously. I can tell you mean the entire globe. All the world's politicians, all the world's millionaires and billionaires. We should purposefully select them to not be alive again. Okay, let's say we do that, Tsukasa. Let me ask you this. How exactly do you plan on doing that if you cannot access the records of every politician and every millionaire and billionaire that was in the world before society collapsed? And keep in mind that society doesn't exist anymore. The economy doesn't exist anymore. The corporations and money that these millionaires and billionaires had doesn't exist anymore. They are back to ground zero like the rest of us. No records of them exist anymore, Tsukasa. So please explain to me, how exactly are you going to pick the millionaires, billionaires, and politicians of the time before petrification out of all the stone people here, unless by some convenient chance you know the name and faces of every millionaire and billionaire and politician on the planet? And what would be the chances of that? I'll tell you this, practically fucking astronomical. And you tell me to my fucking face if you truly think you know the name and the face of every millionaire, billionaire, and politician on this planet. And then corrupt society again. With what power? They don't have any power over anybody anymore. There are no laws. There's no society. There's no building. There's no economy. Money doesn't exist anymore. And most of the billionaire, millionaires' money were in financial assets. Not actual physical currency. Assets that do not exist anymore because everything has turned into dust but us. And the last time I checked, when I caught your sorry ass busting down these stone petrified people, you were choosing people at random, children included. Tsukasa, what the fuck did the children have to do with that? What the fuck did they have to do with the millionaires, billionaires, and politicians that were corrupting society? Why did you destroy them? And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, let's not act like we didn't see that shit when he started destroying the petrified people. The first thing he showed were not just regular average people, grown adults, but it included children too. And what did they show after he was walking away from that pathway? Every petrified person was rubble, including the fucking Tsukasa murdered children. I don't think anybody noticed this in the video, in the show. He murdered children and other innocent people Because he had no fucking clue if they were a rich elite or politician. Let that sink in. He's so extreme and set in his ideals that he's willing to destroy the chances of innocent people getting their lives back, just in hopes that by chance he destroys the petrified bodies of the rich elites and politicians that were corrupting our society, even though they don't have any power anymore. In fact, him and Senku hold all the power because they're the only ones that have the knowledge to bring everything back, the skills to do all of that, and are the ones figuring out what the fuck is going on in the first place and how this is all happening. And frankly, they're way ahead of anybody they end up unpetrifying. The ball was in their court. They literally hold all the fucking cards on deck. All of them. They're the dealers. And yet, they really think that if they just, well, Tsukasa thought that if they unpetrified the wrong person, all their hopes of bringing things back, maybe better, would just be pointless. But no, it really doesn't matter, because unless they had the skills to bring back money, to bring back an economy, the knowledge to do so, they really can't. They don't have the power, the ability to do so, to convince people to do so. And by the way, if you really think that your average politician or your average rich elite has that level of intelligence to bring back an entire economy and currency, again, average politician, your average rich elite, you are surely mistaken. Many of them motherfuckers are nepotistic ass babies that had shit hand me down by their parents because of generational wealth. They don't have any real skills beyond maybe being a CEO. And that right there, that's the part that honestly drives me insane, but I also find funny the most when it comes to the war between Tsukasa and Senku. The entire war could have been prevented by Senku simply reminding Tsukasa society doesn't exist. Money doesn't exist anymore. They do not have any power any more than we do, beyond with our knowledge and experience of what's going on right now, because we have a head start. All you're going to do is take the lives of innocent people trying to conveniently find those that you deem corrupted. Hell, I doubt Senku knew the name and faces of every rich elite and politician on the planet, and he was a very intelligent kid with a shit ton of knowledge. And he is still a kid. They are still in high school, by the way. And I'm pretty sure it's implied in the show that he does have a photographic memory. So, he would absolutely remember the name and faces of every elite politician out there if for some reason that was knowledge he cared to know. And even then, he probably still wouldn't share it with Tsukasa. That's it. The entire war would have been over. Any petrified people that got crushed into rubble would have been saved, with the exception of the very first people that Tsukasa stumped out, because I'm pretty sure he was doing that, at least some of that, right before him and Senku had their little war started between. The concerns were made, they were starting to have that beef, but the war in of itself didn't necessarily start yet, before, they became enemies. Which means chances are, even if Senku did convince him, instead of having that dumbass ideological battle, I mean, the little ideological debate in of itself was pretty interesting, don't get me wrong. But given their circumstances and what Senku knew and what Tsukasa should have remembered, there was just no need for that whatsoever. It was dumb. It was pointless. All you had to do was follow the damn trail. Back to the collapse of society, Senku. Now, here's the part where we finally bring things back around to the last thing I told you to put a pin on. To put a pin on. That one billionaire they do unpetrify because of his skills as a seller. The very thing that I said earlier about your average elite doesn't apply to him because he's your above average elite that actually has some fucking skills to pay the bills. Even though bills don't exist anymore. And not only that, he of all people had the knowledge and the skills to instantly bring back currency and an economy once they started unpetrifying more people and needed a way to convince them to work with them, to put a ship together, to bring the resources together to start rebuilding society again. Which he started by recreating a medium of trading currency to give items and people's labor a value. Which he himself, forgive me for not saying his name, it's slipping my mind, I'll put it up on screen. But he himself even states how important an economy is to a society, a means of trade like a legal tender, aka currency, money. How giving things this set monetary value makes it easier to trade items, resources, and labor. Even back when money didn't exist, humans were always trying to put a value on something when it came to trading. I will trade you 5 chickens for my goat. Oh, I'll trade you my cow for an entire week's worth of rye for bread. Currency acts like this third-party means of trade to help give things value by this main tender, legal tender alone. Because, well, if you don't do that and we just do the constant trade bargaining, well, then things are going to get very complicated very fast. Because for every single individual item you could ever trade ever, you got to put a set number of value for that. For how much that would be equivalent for you trading one of your cows, your goats, your chicken, the freaking rye or vegetables you collected during agricultural season. You want to trade a cow? Well, now you need a list to say how much a cow is worth in this amount of rye for bread, this amount of collected wild nuts and berries, this amount of pelts, this amount of goats or chicken, or milk, or eggs. Things will be complicated versus, oh, yeah, this amount of eggs would be like 3 gold coins. A whole cow would be like 50 shillings. How much will I charge for my labor to build a shelter for your cow? Let's say it takes like 5 days for me to make it. I'll charge you, I don't know, 20 silver dugals a day. To which I could then use those dugals to buy some food to feed myself, to buy some equipment for my work, to buy some furniture for home. And now all that money is circulating. You got an economy going because you're spending money with other people. You're spending your dugals on this person's labor and this person's goods. They trade it for their needs, so on and so forth. It all goes around. It keeps the world. It helps the world go around. Literally, money helps the world go around.
Money on the table.
Now, again, in a sense, Tsukasa's concerns were to a degree valid, but there's no guarantees that was going to happen if they just, brought back your average rich elite or politician. And in order to get the good one that would actually help their circumstance, they need to find the right one, which lucky enough, they did. And even then, a corrupted guy is not going to, help you bring back an economy if he doesn't have the knowledge or skills to do so. And he was just your average nepotist baby. People love to say money is the root of all evil. No, greed is the root of all evil. It don't matter if it's currency. It doesn't matter if it's resources. Greed is the root of all evil. And money is a necessary tool that helps the world go around, that helps trade thrive, helps trade be easier when it comes to bargaining the value of goods and services. Can it be abused in of itself? Yes, but in a sort of way, it's kind of a necessary evil if you want to have a properly functional society, especially one with a huge dense population. which will happen over time as they try to unpetrify over 9 billion people over the years, never mind the new people that are born over that time. So even though they got lucky enough that they not only found the right billionaire that would know how to bring back an economy, but they were lucky enough to choose the right one that had good intentions, that actually cared about the mission at hand. And honestly, probably one of the very interesting characters of this show, with knowledge and skills. But there's no guarantee that would have happened if they were going for just any ex-rich elite or politician, because they could just be just as fucking dumb as the average man. And even after all that, still, Senku could have ended the chances of that entire war happening if he just reminded Tsukasa, nothing exists anymore. They are no longer politicians or rich elites. They have nothing like us. And frankly, it doesn't matter if you try to get rid of those people. There will always be new people in the world that will eventually become corrupt due to their own reasons, due to their own greed. You can't prevent that. But you can add measures. You can add proper checks and balances to make sure society isn't corrupted and perverted. And of course, that'd be more of a grand opportunity to fix things from the ground up. But it doesn't mean you're not going to still be using a lot of the knowledge and experience of the past to rebuild society, because you need it. You're going to need it. History will always have its corrupt people, as long as they don't get into power or stay into power. And when we choose the right people, the world can be a better place. But that is a group effort as a society, not just the responsibility of one individual leader, corrupted or not. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we have for today. That's pretty much the video in a nutshell. This has been sitting on my mind for quite a while. I wanted to do this a long time ago, back when I first saw that season with the war between Senku and Tsukasa. For the longest, I've been sitting on it and wait for the right moment to do so when I didn't have so much on my plate. And right now, while I was looking for a decent commentary topic to talk about, while I'm still taking care of the second channel, just so I can upload something, I think this was a good opportunity to do so. Anyways, let me know your thoughts and opinions down below. How do you feel about the show? How do you feel about the war between Senku and Tsukasa? Do you think I'm onto something when I state how they could have avoided the whole thing? Or do you think there's something I'm missing? And is any part of my memory on the show incorrect? Did my memory fail me? I mean, obviously it did a little bit, because I couldn't recall the name of some characters. But nonetheless, for the stuff that I did say that I'm pretty sure I remember correctly, if I am wrong, let me know. Nonetheless, thoughts and opinions, let me know down below. And while you're at it, if you've enjoyed this video, leave a like. If not, leave a dislike along with your comment telling me why. Because any and all interaction is good for my channel and the algorithm. And any and all criticism can help me get better. And if you didn't enjoy, please do leave your dislikes, because your dislikes do matter, and I appreciate your time even if you didn't enjoy it. I really do. But if you did enjoy, subscribe to add a little dose of chaos in your life. And I'll see you guys next time. For what? I honestly don't know yet. By the way, if you're new to me, one of the primary things I do in this channel is gaming related videos. What did I miss? I check out games I missed out on. Difficulty tweak. I go back to play their games on each individual difficulty, see if they're fair, fun, or BS, yada yada. So we might eventually make a comeback around to that once I wrap up things on my second no commentary channel, link down below by the way, and move it over to those other platforms, BitChute, Rumble, Odyssey. Shout out to those guys again. But if we do not come back around to the gaming videos, I'll probably do one more commentary video. I just don't know about what. There is one interesting topic, or two interesting topics I think I might do on the situation they may have heard about on the news, or, you know, just blowing up on social media with that one father just taking his daughters, to the ladies' bathroom, you know. Oh, woe is that one older guy that got disappointed. A freaking father was making sure his children were safe in the public bathroom. Anyways, let's save that for a possible future video if I ever do that. And perhaps a video on why fake news persists, as in mis and disinformation. Why it's dangerous, and why it just doesn't seem like it's going to go anywhere anytime soon, no matter how much people try to fact check it. Now, it might be a few days to a week before I end up making anything, but between those two topics, let me know which one you want me to talk about. If I don't get any comments on it, then I'll probably just do like a coin flip or something, or just see which one I want to talk about the most. But otherwise, if you're interested in me talking about those topics, let me know which one you want me to talk about. Or if you would like me to talk about both, which one would you like me to talk about first? Till then, let's see what happens. HK out, and have a good one.